Hey guys, welcome back to another DJI Avatar 2 video. This is also the second time I'm recording this because the first time I almost completed the video and then I forgot to put the mic on. It happens. Anyways, the weather hasn't been fantastic, so I wasn't able to schedule my flight to get it today to be able to show you the different flight modes properly. So instead, we're doing a deeper dive into the Goggles 3. So in my last video, we did a quick overview, but this one, we're gonna cover this in more detail and then some notable things that you should know about the Goggles 3. If you're new, hello, my name is Demetrius and I create videos on drones, photography, and everything in between. And it's a mix of entertaining and educational content. Subscribe to stay up to date. Now let's take a look at these bad boys. So quickly, let's cover some of the external features and functions on the Goggles 3. Now in my last video for the first flight, I did go over this and you can check that out up here somewhere. But just to recap quickly, the battery is at the back here. On the front, you have a set of cameras for pass-through. Underneath is where you can adjust your eye settings. So whether you have wide or narrow eyes and how much clarity you want when you go through the menu system. And then all the functions are basically on the right-hand side. Back button, enter button, and then the pass-through with the on and off button and USB-C at the bottom there. And you have a couple of vents at the top. Up here is your headrest. Currently, I do have the additional attachment on because without it, my eyes were actually touching the inside glass here and it just made it really murky and I had to keep on wiping the goggles so I could see properly. So if you're having trouble with that, put the attachment on. It's pretty straightforward. It uses Velcro. And then your SD card essentially goes right there at the top, just above the sensor. So when you take these off, they're not on, and when you put them on, the display lights up. As for comfort, they're actually quite comfortable. It's easy to put on with the head strap. I don't find much of an issue. I make an adjustment. I have very little light leak, like maybe at the bottom, the very slightest amount, but nothing major. Otherwise, they're very well balanced. They're very light. They're actually easier to transport because you can literally just twist and fold. And I recommend the foam inserts that come with the Goggles 3 to keep hold of those. So if you are traveling and you don't want to damage your screen, you might want to keep those. Compared to the V2s that I have, which are actually massive, in terms of weight, they're about the same. This doesn't have the battery. The battery is connected externally and it's a little small one. Here is the battery for the V2s. So it's a lot smaller than the Goggles 3. However, with this, you were able to switch it out and use maybe a LiPo battery, an external battery, something that we can't do at the moment or that I know of with the Goggles 3. But yeah, weight's about the same. However, with this is all like front loaded. The Goggles 3 are definitely more comfortable because I can definitely feel the difference now where it's like on my face, it's pinching here. So if you're flying for a while, you might notice the difference. And the only reason I kept these is so it's compatible with, for instance, the Runcam Wasp and the O3. We haven't got that capability yet. Ideally, I hope O3 and Wasp, and that way I could just take one goggles rather than two sets, because that would be very annoying because then you're just having to pick and choose what you want to carry. I think that's everything to do with the external functions and features on the goggles here. Obviously check out the last video if you want to see a little bit more on the quick overview for that. However, now let's jump into the main menu of the Goggles 3 so you can have a look at that in more detail. Also, one more thing to note that I didn't mention, the Goggles 3 doesn't come with a case. The V2s actually came with a case, but I also bought those separately. Okay, let's take a dive into the main menu system here. I'm just gonna put these on because it makes it easier for me to go through it. So right now I am screen recording on my iPhone. If I double check this, I do. So the only thing is I'm actually in pass-through now, so I can see what you guys are seeing. The way to access that is on the right-hand side here. Is if you double tap, it activates pass-through. The field of view is very narrow. That is my field of view right now. So it's really, really narrow and it feels very magnified. The one thing that I was watching from Captain Drone's video, he said because it's that magnified, it helps you see your drone easier. I don't know about that personally. This is a great idea from DJI, but you know what? Let's save this for the end of the video. Let's carry on. So let me go back into the main menu system of the drone here. So while I am screen recording, there is 3 menus basically. You have your shortcut menu, your video menu, and your main menu. So the shortcut menu is if you pull back on the 5D button here, it brings down your shortcut menu. So the first one on your list is whether you want to hit record, and this is for, well, both the goggles and the drone. If you have it set up that, we'll check that in the main menu soon. Enhanced display, so obviously makes it a little bit brighter. Head tracking, check my previous video for that. So that's how head tracking works. Share live view is essentially where you can share your live feed of your goggles to a mobile phone, and it can only be done to one mobile phone. It can't be done to multiple. And I'm guessing that's just for bandwidth purposes, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's fairly straightforward to access. Once you hit that on your actual phone, there will be a little pop-up that says connect to live view. You tap on that, you wait for the goggles to connect, and then essentially now you're hands-free with the goggles, and this is great. Just note that if you are in controlled airspace, am I looking at the camera? Yeah. Just know if you are in controlled airspace, you have to have a cable plugged in order to put in the DJI unlock. So you might as well just use the cable rather than live view. And then if you're wondering, I think I've got this linked in the description box down below. This is an anchor cable, it's like 6 foot. So if you have a little bit of room, because the one provided by DJI is a little bit short and you don't want someone breathing on your neck. Let's carry on. You have your easy acro functions, and this is for the motion controller, which I covered in my last video. And then you have a defog function. So if you are in a humid environment and the goggles become fogged up, you can tap on this and it will start to defog the goggles, and you'll hear the fan's noise as well. And because the goggles are slightly hot, there is a slight fan as well at the moment, so it just boosts the fan. And next to that is your brightness level, and you can adjust the brightness to your liking. Now let's jump into the camera mode. So if you pull up or away from you on the 5D button, here you have both photo mode and video mode. We will cover photos separately in a video and all the functions, and then video will also cover separately. But if we carry on here, you obviously have your settings here whether you want to choose auto or manual mode. And then when you are in manual mode, that's when you can adjust your ISO and shutter speed. When you're in auto mode, this is where you can adjust your exposure value. So whether you want it -3 or 7, or how much does this go? This goes down to -3, all the way up to +3 on exposure value. So if you are shooting in auto mode and you just want to keep it in auto, but you want to adjust your exposure value, that's where you can adjust it. Otherwise, if you want to have your settings locked, you can put it into manual mode, and that way you can adjust your shutter speed and then choose your ISO settings. This is where you can adjust your white balance as well. So currently the room temperature here is at 52,000 Kelvin. Your aspect ratio, so if you do want to use more vertical style footage, I recommend putting it into 4:3. But if you want to maximize the full view of the goggles, and you click 16:9, you can see how much of the display I now get versus the 4:3. However, this is less versatile when publishing, for instance, to YouTube Shorts or to Instagram. Is it really weird that I'm speaking through I got the goggles on? Please let me know. But let's continue. So I currently use 4:3. It gives me the most practicality. This is your video qualities. I've got mine set at the highest. This eats up a lot of storage. And this is for if you're editing on a 30 FPS timeline or lower, you can slow the footage down, giving you something more cinematic. However, more frames, higher quality, more storage. So you can reduce this, you just have to pick and choose when. You could always switch to 2.7K at 60 frames per second, and this will just give you eat less more space basically. And the lowest setting you can record on is 1080p at 30 frames per second. You also have your field of view, so ultra wide, wide or normal. Again, I think we should cover that in a separate video to see which will give us the best settings and how they look as well. At the moment, I just record at ultra wide. I just think just maximum field possible. And you also don't see the difference. If I click wide, I don't see a difference right now. I don't know if the drone has to be on. I just don't see a difference. So yeah, this is something that I want to test in a future video. This is where you can set your auto ISO limit. So let's say you did shoot in manual mode and you wanted to keep auto ISO on to allow it to adjust the exposure value. If you didn't want to have really grainy footage, this is where you can cap your ISO limit. So this can be very useful. Then you have your stabilization. So if you use gyroflow, you can switch this to off. I've been using Rocksteady. I don't think it's that bad. It looks really smooth if you ask me. I'm happy with it. And then you have your color options, so normal or D-Log M. Again, I made a video about a couple of weeks ago on color grading, and I made some LUTs as well, and you can check that up at the top here as well. Now, before we get into the OSD, let's take a dive into the main menu of the Goggles 3. So let's put these bad boys back on. So the first one here is your status. So right now it's telling me like if a controller was connected. Once I'm connected, nothing will be displayed here. And this is also where you can switch between the Avata 2, Air 3 or Mini 3 Pro. These are the only drones compatible as of now with the Goggles 3. And I'll probably make a separate video as well for the DJI Air 3 because I think that will be pretty impressive. I have done a test for it, but I think that obviously deserves its own video. So if there's anything you want to see in particular, you let me know in the comments what you want to see first. Underneath that, we have our album. So this is when you are recording to the goggles at the same time, you can preview your footage. This is obviously very handy for myself when I'm showing you clips on YouTube. Am I pointing to the camera here? There you go. When I'm pointing onto the camera so you can see like what I see in the goggles with the subtitles, and I'll show you where you can access that as well. This is also handy, for instance, if you lose your drone, you can play back whatever you last saw, and you have something recorded. Like it does happen, it's happened to me in the past. So it's always good to record both at the same time. Underneath here is transmission. So if, for instance, I want to broadcast to another set of Goggles 3, this is where you can go and do that. So under pilot, at the moment I've set it to off, but then you can turn this on. And then if someone else with a set of Goggles 3 has that, they will go to audience mode and then just find the goggles that are broadcasting, and then you're basically watching a friend through another set of goggles, no connection. Really cool. I do like that. Focus mode, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, in order to help clarity, it's more clearer in the middle of the frame rather than the edges. So that's what focus mode does. And I was using that, I believe, on the V2s. It must be the same thing as well on the Goggles 3. I have it set off. We can probably test this later on. I haven't really seen a difference from when I have switched between them, but we'll do another video again. And then channel mode is if you, right now I've got it to auto, but if you want to be on a specific channel and you're flying with others, you can set to manual. Now I have done the FCC unlock, and it is a free file if you look on other YouTube videos. So essentially, if you want to pick your frequency, 2.4, 5.8, and then your bandwidth, so 60, 40, 20, and 10. I believe Mads Tech has done a more detailed video on what bitrate is which one. But essentially, this is if you want to fly with others and you don't want to interfere with other people flying, you can put this into manual mode and you can pick a certain channel in order to pick the best signal as possible. Because I fly mainly by myself, I just have this in auto and it's fine, but that's something to note. Audience mode is obviously, again, where you're going to find another pilot and you watch through their view, and that's pretty much it. The last one is settings here. So the first one here is safety. This is where you can adjust like your max flight altitude and your distance. At the moment it's got no limit, but you can set this to 26,000 feet. Obviously I have mine in feet, so at the moment mine's not set to limit. So if you don't want to go too far, you can set that. Your return to altitude, where you can update your home point, and this is where you do all your calibration if something was wrong. Camera view before loss, again, if something bad happened. And then ESC beam, so if you can't find your drone, maybe there's some tall grass, and then you just activate this, you'll hear the drone make a beeping noise, and it's quite loud. There you go. And then lastly here, you have advanced safety settings. So what do you want the drone to do in for instance, an aircraft lost signal. So you have three options: hover, land, or return to home. And then you have emergency propeller stop. So if you do need to shut the propellers off in emergency, if you're flying with the sticks, normally you just push those in or out, and they will just stop the props immediately, or you could probably do those through the goggles. Let's go back and we go into control. So this is where we can adjust the gimbal pitch, gimbal calibration, the units as I mentioned earlier, turtle mode, so if the drone was upside down and you need to flip it over, that's where you can access that. Or if you have the RC3, you have a shortcut for that. And if you need to see the goggles tutorial, you can go through that again. The camera settings, here you have more settings here for the camera. So for instance, we didn't have grid lines available, we didn't have center point available. This is where you can pick your storage, format the card, reset the camera parameters, and in advanced camera settings, this is where you can select whether you want to record both just the aircraft or the goggles. Camera view recording, so if you wanted video subtitles like the OSD to be displayed, that's where the video subtitles are. You have anti-flicker, noise reduction, sharpness. I think those are the only three things. Oh, make sure you set this on. Auto record on takeoff is so handy because you don't want to go off flying and then you forget to hit the record button. We have our display here. So again, defog's here. So things to note mainly here is when you are in pass-through essentially, you have 2D and 3D. I don't know how to describe, maybe in the 90s, if you went to Disneyland and you had like these 3D world kind of things and you had those special glasses, essentially that's what 3D does. So if pass-through doesn't really work, but if I double tap, we're in 2D mode right now and there's nothing really special. However, if I go back and then put this to 3D mode, now it almost as if it's coming out alive to me, which is really weird. I don't know, it's kind of nice, but personally, I prefer picture in picture. Not only can I see the camera right now, but I can still see my OSD display right here, and I can still play with it and use it as a function. And I can still obviously look at my phone, make sure it's recording. And then if I just double tap, it goes back to the OSD display here. So that's what that does. You just have to pick your preference on what you prefer. And lastly is your about section. And I'm probably gonna blank this because it has a bunch of my serial numbers, but this is where you can check your firmware, your controller firmware, etc., your battery cycle count, your flight data speeds, your OTG wide connection. So if you are connected to a computer, you can use that as well. And this is where you can reset your data as well. But that is essentially the main menu. And I think we've covered everything there. So before we cover OSD display, you can actually control the main menu with the motion controller or the joystick. Because everything is on the right-hand side, and most people would be right-handed, I'm assuming, you would put this in your right hand. So it makes it a bit weird having to how do you access the menu? Now, DJI have made this really handy by using this. So using the trigger and this joystick menu here, you can scroll through the menu. It's actually pretty quick as well with this. So if we wanted to center the mouse, we just want to press this once. And if you want to access real view or picture in picture, you double tap that and to bring up picture in picture. But essentially it's a mouse. So if I center the mouse right now, you can see I should be recording on my iPhone as well, and you see everything that you're seeing. So if I wanted to access the shortcut menu, point up, pull the trigger in, and you can access everything. And then to go back, click anywhere on the display, or you push the trigger forward as if the reverse function. Again, if I want to access the camera menu, go to the bottom, access everything here. And if you wanted to scroll through an option, so let's say I wanted to scroll through the white balance, how do I go to the side? You use the joystick at the top and you just literally just hold to one side. And it's a lot faster doing it this way than it is with the 5D button. And then main menu, same thing again. You can access everything. And then to go back, just push the trigger forward. Really handy. Yeah, makes things a lot easier. So you can pause your flight and change what you need to change. You also have your record button, which is conveniently located here as well. So you can literally just press that and you're recording as well. Unfortunately, you can't do the same with the RC3, but technically you just put this in your left hand and just do what you need to do to adjust. However, there is some shortcut buttons like start, stop, record, and start to stop the flight, and adjust the gimbal and choosing your flight mode as well. Okay, that I believe, is that everything? Oh, let's cover the OSD display. So with the OSD display, as you can see in the center, I have my crosshair. On the bottom left, you have your flight mode, so normal, sport, or manual. Underneath that, you have how high you are and your distance away you are from your home point, as well as your horizontal and vertical speed. I currently have mine set to miles per hour. Nothing in the middle, but on the right hand side, if we go along the bottom now, you have your drone battery and the flight time remaining on that battery. You also have your remote controller and goggle strength signal, your bitrate transmission for video signal, and the number of satellites you have, GNSS, and then you have your goggles battery. Just above that, you will get some pop-up displays. So it's obviously checking me, check my surrounding area if I'm about to fly because the controller is on. If the controller is not on, there you go, RC signal interference, and it's not gonna let me set off, obviously. And then above that, you see how much recording time limit you have for both the drone and the goggles. Obviously, because I have mine set at the highest amount, it's obviously going to be a lot less time. So the lesser quality footage, the more time you'll have available to record on however big your SD card or internal storage you'll be using. And I believe that is it on the goggles. Woo! Okay, let's jump into what I would like to see improved in the future with the Goggles 3. So I obviously haven't had the Avatar 2 in the Goggles 3 long enough. However, from current usage so far, this is what I would like to see improved for the next generation or the next one that's going to be coming out. First one, and I think others will agree as well, is to have an interchangeable battery. Now I haven't had issues because I haven't been flying long enough to worry about if this is gonna run out, but maybe you are traveling along, you're charging the batteries and you're going from one location to the next. Yes, you could charge this on the go too, but I wish we could have a way to adjust, well, swap this out. How do we swap the battery out? Yeah, so right now I have a power bank. This is like, how many milliamp hours is this? 20,100. So this is a big battery, this one. There you go, it is charging. However, like, now I have this and then this flopping about. And again, if I'm in controlled airspace, I need to have my phone plugged in to be able to do that. However, if you are in the middle of nowhere, you might not have that issue, but you're still carrying something extra. Yeah, so it's just a lot to think about. So yeah, I would like to see an additional battery for this, or a swappable battery at least, and hopefully in a future upgrade. I think we're all waiting for the firmware update to happen, but for the Goggles 3 to be compatible with the O3 Air unit, and I wish they could do like the Runcam Wasp and other third-party ones, but I won't be able to use the Goggles 3 with the Cinelog 25. I can use it with the Mark 5 because that's an O3 Air unit, but this all depends on DJI and how they're gonna do it, but it will just save everyone travel space. Like if I'm gonna go be traveling now, I only have to take one goggles, not this and this. But this is the thing, I just wanna take one set. The other thing as well is eventually, are we gonna see third-party antennas? As you can see here on the V2s, I have the iFlight crystals here, and then I've got the omnidirectional antenna. So that's the patch antenna which goes forward, and these ones are omnidirectional. There is the true RC ones that are going to be very good, also popular as well. So yeah, are we going to see third-party goggles? I haven't had any issues per se, but I haven't done anything long range or anything crazy. But are we going to get options in the future? And the last thing, and I started talking about this earlier in the video and I said I'll save this for later, so I want to cover this now. The pass-through cameras, it's a great idea by DJI. However, it's been implemented badly because of I said to you, the field of view was like this. So let's say someone came up to me, maybe a Karen came up to me and she was nagging or something. I've never had that issue, but let's say something happened. Maybe I'm mid-flight, I could pause the drone, because I can do that, and then activate pass-through, but I can't see her because it's like this. And then maybe she was in front of me, it will look very magnified. I like the direction DJI went here, but the field of view is terrible. I would prefer if it was a lot wider, and it will feel more natural as well, in order to see what's on the side of me. Also, I would like to see better quality cameras at the front. Like 720p is fine, it's first generation. If we can get to 1080p at least, that would be better. And I have tried this at night when I'm playing around with it, just in my room. there's so much noise. It is terrible. So yeah, I just want to see, hopefully when we have goggles 4, that the cameras are better and we have a wider field of view. I don't think this is something that can be fixed with firmware. It's good that DJI has this feedback. DJI, if you are listening, and eventually I'm on your list for a future drone to use to test, I'd love to be involved. These are just my honest opinion. Great idea, bad implementation. So if there's anything you want to learn about the DJI Goggles 3 or the Avata 2 in future videos, put a comment down below. Also, let me know what drone you're flying. Is the DJI Avata 2 on your shortlist here? Subscribe for more videos on drones, photography, and everything in between. And YouTube recommends you watch this video next. See you in the next video. Peace.